All right, in this tutorial, I am going to attempt to tackle kind of a seascape sunset type vibe. But before we can get here, we have to start with a sketch. So I'm going to show you really quickly the sketch that I have laid out here. We've got our horizon line, which is slightly below kind of that halfway center. And then we've got kind of this land that comes within the sea. We've got kind of this cove. So I'm going to try and capture this. We've got plenty of room for a beautiful sky that we can play around with. If we're going to have a sunset, let's make it worth it. And I'm going to zoom you out and show you the colors we're going to work with. And we're going to start by mixing up our sky. So I'm going to pull in some ultramarine, but I don't want it to be quite this bright. So I'm going to pull in some transparent yellow, which is a little green now. And because I'm not really going for green, I'm going to pull in some of our quinacridone red. And that will kind of desaturate everything for us till we have a nice, more natural color. I don't want to totally lose what we have going on with the ultramarine. Like, I don't want it to lose the brightness that we have, but I don't want it to quite be out of the tube ultramarine. So that's kind of what I'm going for. I can always pull from our tube if I want to. If I want it a little bit brighter, I am going to kind of mix our, if we're going for kind of a sunset, mix our sunsetty color. So I'm just going to take our yellow and our red and make kind of an orangey tone, which is beautiful. And then we want some, I'm just going to get some more of our pure yellow out here just to make sure that it's ready should we need it. I like to, if you've not painted with me before, I like to have kind of a gradient range so I can, as I'm painting, decide to pull a slightly more red version or a slightly more yellow version. So in the middle, I have them mixed kind of where I think I want to go, but sometimes when I'm painting, I find, oh, I actually want it to be more red or more yellow. And then honestly, if I do stick with what's in the middle, it's very easy to just mix the two edges together and get back to where we just were. Okay, I think that's where we're going to start. I think I will be, let's just do the sky for now. Another supply that you will need if you are doing sky with me, if you haven't done it before, is you'll need some bath tissue. That's my favorite way to do clouds. It's so easy. It's so, I don't know, it's just quick and easy. If you want a more detailed tutorial about how and why it works, I'll have that video linked below. It's a nice quick one that goes into more detail. Okay, let's get on with our sky. My trick for skies with sunsets is to work kind of the opposite of how I normally do skies. So I normally start from the top and work my way down. I still might do that this time. You know what, let's do that this time just for the sake of consistency. So I'm going to wet the top and kind of work my way down, but I'm not going all the way down yet because I don't want my color to fade all the way down. I'm going to now take our blue. I'm going to change the angle so you can see a little bit more of what I'm doing. All right, so we've got our nice wet surface, and before this gets too dry, I'm going to start painting right at the top. Now, if you look at the sky, when you can see it coming down to the horizon, it's always darkest, deepest, furthest away from the horizon. Especially for a sunset, it's going to, like be eventually reaching into kind of the night sky. So I'm just going to kind of bring that down and let it fade into almost nothing. I found that the key to getting a more realistic sunset is to have that line in between. Now I'm going to go right on our horizon line, which is down here and not touching what's already wet. I'm going to get our more pinky, orangey type color. I'll let that fade a little bit in here so we can have it on our grasses. And then I'm going to slowly move towards our more yellow. And I'm keeping this pretty watered down. There's a lot of water on my brush and not a ton of pigment. I can always add a little bit more, but it's real hard to pick it up. And now I'm just barely kissing where that blue is. I don't want the colors to mix, or we'll get green in our sky, and that is not what we're going for. All right. And now while this is still wet, I'm going to quickly grab my tissue, dampen it just a touch. Again, there's more detail in the video. I'm actually first going to take out where my sun kind of is. I'll adjust that in a touch. And then we're gonna grab our clouds. You want this to be kind of random. All right, we're gonna take some of our ultramarine, our quinacridone red. We're gonna mix a nice purple color, but I don't want it to be super bright, so we're gonna throw in some of our yellow as well. All right, and keeping it nice and damp, we're going to tap it. So since the sun is down, the lighter part of the clouds will be the underneath. So I'm going to kind of tap it slightly over where we've placed. So we won't see quite as much of these dark sections. And I'm going to water it down a little bit more. That's just a little bit heavier than I want it to kind of appear. And we'll soften it in just a minute. And go from there. Okay, so again with our tissue, I'm just going to kind of go along just to kind of soften the edge just a touch. I'm going to do the same thing with my brush. I'm actually going to add another one. I feel like I need one down here. I'm just pulling along to kind of soften these edges. Wiping my brush off on the towel that I have. All right, I'm adding some more blue to that purple that we've mixed, and I'm just kind of gonna glaze it into the sky a touch. Just to deepen it a little bit more. Now I've got a damp, dirty brush just to blend it out. Cleaning it off, dabbing it off. This is to help blend it out a touch. Let's move on to the lower half. So we're going to start with our water the same way, only reverse, that we did this top section. Okay, so I'm going to start with, and I'm going to be leaving some like white spaces. So instead of like filling this whole plane, I'm going to focus this here to kind of have that light reflection. Okay, and then moving on to the blue, washed my brush off. I'm going to leave some space. A little too much pigment, so I'm gonna add some more water, and we're just gonna, this section will be more in shadow, and I'm gonna even kind of bring it in on the edge a little more. Add a little more of our yellow tone in here, just to kind of have that continuing to come through like our sunlight. Okay, a little more of our blue. I'm mixing it in again with kind of our purple tone that we used for our clouds, and I'm just really still a little strong. I can always go in and make it a little bit darker, but I found that my water tends to get too deep too fast, so I'm trying to be really careful to not do that this time. concentrating some of this color on the edge to imply a shadow, which will help our minds kind of ground that section, and also deepening this corner because that's how I like to do it. Okay, a little bit of the lighter blue here, a little bit more of our orangey tone, and then back to the blue. I'm just kind of feeling this out, if you can't tell. Just kind of figuring out how we want to do this. Clean, damp brush. I'm just going to pull this blue here just a little to push that horizon line back just a touch. Okay, I like where this is going. I'm going to softly, this is not a lot of pigment. I'm just going to kind of add a glaze here. It's just a little too noisy for me visually. I'm just going to soften that just on the edges. Forgot how granular ultramarine is. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. So now we're going to move from our water and our sunset area to some of this ground. First we're going to mix our grasses. So we've got our nice green here, which I already love that it's a nice warm green. I'm going to pull in some yellow. Let's actually just mix in with this, and I'm going to pull in a little bit more of our quinacridone red to desaturate it just a touch on this side. Yeah, I like that. It's very dirty. If you are not good at mixing colors, one that is similar to this, I just swatched it the other day. Serpentine Genuine, I just got this in the collection that I swatched. I thought I already had it, but I don't. And it is very, very similar. Almost exactly. So if you're not good at mixing colors but you want a similar tone, this could be a great option for you. Anyway, I'm going to start with this kind of at the lighter section, but I'll probably pull in some of this warmer tone that we mixed and we had in the sky as well, just to have that reflection repeated. So I think I'm going to start with that and then pull in some of our deeper green later, and then we'll do the sand because I kind of just don't want to mix the sand color right now. And I'm focusing this on where some of those highlights would be. So again, looking at my reference image, which I've modified, obviously, I've diverted from, just kind of focusing on where the shadow, or where the highlights would be, and then I'm going to go in with the shadow tone, this just deeper, more blue tone. Kind of adding that in. Okay, let's add a little bit more and mix a slightly more shadow. Let's see, in order to do that, probably going to need some ultramarine to deepen that up real good. Oh, yes. Look at that. That is what we're going for. Look at that nice shadow. And we've got this nice gradient coming in here. Let me zoom you in. It's hard to see. So this creates that nice shadow. I'm going to pull it in along this whole little beastie. All right, and I'm going to, sorry if you can hear my man-child. With a little bit more of that dark tone, I'm just going to pull it down a little bit and allow it to blend. just going to add a little spot where it's going to be. Let's put it here a little bit too. I don't want to completely lose that nice deep value we have. And let's pull in just a little bit of our quinacridone red. I'm going to water it down so it's just like a little bit of a glaze and just put a little hint. You can kind of see it already here, but I like it, so I'm going to exaggerate it just a touch. Okay, now let's mix our sand. As you might imagine, we're going to start with kind of a yellow base. So we have our transparent yellow. Pull in some of this red. And now this is super desaturated. We're going to want it super desaturated. So I'm pulling some of the blue and our quinacridone red. There we go. And we're just going to kind of keep adding a little bit more until we have a nice neutral tone. It is, let's look at it's still pretty, it's not that warm. I don't want it to be green. So we're going to try and avoid that. Let's do a little test. That might be pretty close. If we water it down, that might work watered down. I think I am going to, let's do something. Let's add just a touch more of the blue. That's too green though. Okay. So let's go back. Might just be too deep. Maybe I do like the too green. All right, so we're just gonna go with that. I'm going to work very lightly because we can always come back in and deepen it. And I think that it can look really weird. So I'm overlapping a little bit of this. That's why we soften this edge. We overlap it, you can't really tell. And while this is still nice and damp, we're just going to deepen all of this. So again, I'm using my reference image as a guide to kind of like how this bank is shaped and how. So with the sun behind it, this is going to be darker. I probably shouldn't be saying reference image because I'm following it so loosely. My inspiration image. But it's still how I am kind of defining these spaces. So I actually think I want a little bit of a highlight right before here. There we go. All right, pulling some more in. And then I'm taking some more on this edge. So remember, we want this to be a little bit darker just to show that kind of those two things are meeting. It's going in a little bit. I'm going to do that along the whole edge. You could switch to a smaller detail brush for this. I'm not finding it totally necessary. I'm going to add a little bit more blue. in for our shadows now. We've kind of got them placed pretty well. I'm going to go back into our water tone and just deepen this a little bit more. Hi, baby. Okay, so it's been a minute. I have stepped back, like literally a minute, not like a long time. I'm going to switch to my size 6 or this little tiny detail brush. So this is like a 000 in our darker green. Oop, see, that's too much water, so I'm just going to dab it off. And I'm just pulling from these dark sections for right now. And since this section is farther back, I'm not going to add as many flicks. So we've got the main bulk here, which is where I want it because that's closer to the viewer, and so it needs to have more detail. Slightly watered down, whoops. Just realized I left those sections. Pulling away a little bit from kind of the lines that we have.
How can this not go on the air? How can this...
All right, now I'm going to dive into our lighter kind of desaturated color that we used up here with a little more of that quinacridone red, and I'm just going to add some kind of main flicks. I just want to kind of give some texture up here. I should have done this while this was still wet, but you can still kind of make it work. My kids were getting up, so I was a little distracted. I'm actually gonna scoop along this section. I'm just gonna wet it a little bit at the top here. And then take some more of this pigment and just pull, taking such thick sections. And again with kind of our sky color. Just a little bit. Back to the green. All right. I'm going to take a step back. Okay, how can we adjust this? We've got some nice deep colors in here. I'm kind of taking a step back and I'm squinting. What needs to be fixed? So I'm going in with my 6 round, and I'm going to take a little bit of our orangey tone that we used in the sky, and just a little bit, so it's mostly, it's a little, we're kind of with that medium tone where it's kind of orangey. I'm just going to glaze here. The nice thing about using yellow is that it will brighten everything without necessarily adding too much to it. Okay, again along here, and this will just kind of add some richness to our orange and deepen the saturation just a bit all over. Just going to kind of carefully guarding that white section. Even going to pick some of that up with some clean water. And then same over here. And we can always go in with another glaze to deepen that. Soften this line here. Give us a smooth grading. I'm doing that with just some clean water, damp brush, so it's not super wet, but just enough to kind of fade the edge. So I'm going more into the red tone. I'm just tapping that in here since it's nice and wet here after that glaze we added, just to deepen this. I want to make this horizon line a little bit deeper. That will kind of help the whole thing too. Right now it's reading very flat, and it'll kind of help to bring this section up. So it's almost like I want to create a folded line or like a book section. I'm also going to, while we're here, add a little bit of that into our clouds up here. Just a touch. We can always add a little more if we want to later. And I'm just doing it at the very bottom. All right, so since we've deepened it there, I'm going to repeat the same thing in our, mixing some more. I made it a little too red. So very softly pull it in here again. Again, just to help deepen everything. And then same thing with our blue in just a moment. Okay, I'm going to take some of this deeper tone. I want to balance out, sorry about my chair. I want to balance out some of the deeper values in here, just so it's not so lopsided. I'm going to quickly add this in and then we'll blend it out. So it's watery. We might need to do a couple coats. All right, I'm going to take some of my tissue. This is bleeding a little too much, so I'm just going to pick that up and then kind of correct some of that by tapping some more in. Okay, we're getting a little closer. Okay, I'm also going to go back into our sand tone, and we're just going to add another quick layer here. You know, I'm going to go into the bluer one and add just another quick layer here to really help ground that shadow. And pull this in because I think it's looking a little confusing. Okay, so I'm going to kind of move back. We're going to squint, take a look, see how things are doing. Go in with a little more blue and just pull that together. How's it going? Should we darken the sky, the clouds just a touch? Going back into that purple. Deepen some of these even a little bit more. Remember, it'll be kind of the topmost part that will deepen. All right, and I'm going to call that done. Let's do a little bit of painting ASMR. All right, and there's our finished painting. I hope you enjoyed painting this with me and that you found it helpful. If you have any requests for future videos, let me know in the comment section down below. And of course, you can always send me your paintings either on Instagram or through email. I hope that you are having a wonderful, wonderful day. And until next time, happy painting.